am I audible?
Yes, very much. Yes.
Yes, sir. Nice to see you. Sir,
Yes.
sir, before starting your speech, I must say something about you. It's not something, it's a huge thing. And I feel that it's
Okay.
a pride for somebody to have like this CV. But then also, I will just gist it.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Mohd Muzammil is former Vice Chancellor of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, formerly known as Agra University, Agra,
Yeah.
and M.P. Railkhand University, Bareilly. He taught economics at Lucknow University for about 4 decades. He has been visiting fellow of Oxford University. He is member of Research Program Consortium, Cambridge University, England, chairman of the Committee on Private Investment in Higher Education, chairman of the Committee of Colleges and Academic Monitoring in UP, and also member of the Direct Taxes Advisory Committee, Ministry of Finance, Government of India. He delivered the convocation address. What I have seen is in Atish Dipankar University of Science and
Mm-hmm.
Technology, Dhaka,
Yeah.
Bangladesh, in the year 2017. He delivered invited lectures at Oxford, Cambridge, Leicester in England, National University of Iran in Tehran, as well as Colombo University in Sri Lanka. He's advising government and non-government organization and in governing board of many institutions. He has been a first-class student of social sciences and a gold medalist in Lucknow University for being topper in MA class. He holds a PhD in economics. He is recipient of Career Award for Young Social Scientist of the UGC in 1989. Social Science and Govind Ballabh Pant Economics Award in 2000, Shikshak Sri Samman 2009 of the government of UP, Saraswati Samman, the highest award of UP government for achieving excellence in higher education in 2011. He is a resource person for training the vice chancellors and senior academics under leadership and for academician program of the MHRD government of India and chairman of the peer team of NAC, National Assessment and Accreditation Council, Bangalore. He's a resource person in orientation program, refresher courses, faculty induction program of UGC for university and college teachers across the country. He is the founder director of MBA in agribusiness of Lucknow University and member of academic council and senate of many universities. Sir has published several books, monographs in English, Hindi and Urdu language. He has completed some of 25 research projects sponsored by World Bank, UNDP, EFLD, Government of UK, UGC, National University of Singapore, etc. He has more than 100 articles in research journals, e-journals, and edited books, and also more than 100 articles in newspapers and magazines, national or international type. He contributed to India Higher Education Report in 2018 and 19 of MHRD Government of India. So finally, I must say that he loves reading, teaching, writing, and broadcasting
Thank
in
you.
Akashvani and Doordarshan. I constantly, and I have observed, sir, that you have delivered many lectures in the webinars, in the form
Uh,
of webinars. Lockdown started. So
thank,
that's your beauty, sir. You are
thank you.
always providing the
Thank you.
academic excellence. So, sir, we feel privileged and honored to get you here today. And I
My
must
pleasure.
welcome once again
Thank you very
you
much.
in our lecture series. Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to join. And
Sir, I must introduce our person who will chair today's session.
yes,
He is
please.
Qazi Mohammad Sharif, who is former Assistant Director, Social Welfare Government of West Bengal, who is a WBCS officer also, and our very own Vice President of this. So
Yes.
over to you, Kaji sir.
Mhm.
Yes, sir. Kaji sir, over to you.
Uh, can we see him
Uh,
also?
uh, Qazi
Can we
Sahib,
see Kazi sir? Can we see you?
am I audible?
You are very much audible. You are very welcome. Can I see you on the screen?
Just a minute. Now,
Uh,
now
Yes,
I
yes,
am audible, also visible.
Yes, yes.
The voice is very clear. Voice is very clear, but it would be good if I could have a glimpse of you on the screen.
Assalamu alaikum.
Ji, assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum.
It's a pleasure to me to chair this session of our honorable uh, Professor Muhammad Muzammil. The topic, the migration,
Mm,
is a hotly debated one.
yeah.
Ages. Census Department, the Census of India, who started in 1881, perhaps like that, from initial stages, kept a close study of migratory people. They studied migration, they published reports on it, and kept on going on studying the migration. But what we are discussing today is something other than what was studied in those days in migration.
Mm,
It is a result of a catastrophe that crores of migratory workers who work in different states away from their home, their hometown, their home village, and their home state suddenly lost their job and livelihood. Neither they were given time to return to their house, their home state, nor they are given the opportunity and financial assistance or the communicational uh, facilities to return to their home. So it turned to a catastrophe. Crores of people just walked to their house, hundred and thousand kilometers away from their place of working. Secondly, those people who returned to their home state or home cities lost their job. They had went to their place of work because they could not find their job in their hometown or their home state. Now returning to their home state, they became unemployed and a serious crisis developed in our country, especially in West Bengal, from where lakhs of migrated laborers were working in other states. It is also a fact that lakhs of people are also working in this state from who born in other state, uh, which is uh, which we can find in the reports of census, but that is another story. The problem is that who had returned back, what they can do, what will be their livelihood, and how they will survive themselves. I would request Dr. Professor Muzammil to just start his lecture so that we can learn about the problem, various facets of the problem from him. Thank you, Dr. Muzammil.
Thank you very much, Chairman sir. Thank you very much for a very nice intro and very nice setting the tone of today's lecture. Am I audible to all of you? Am I audible to all
Yes,
of you?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Um, the chairman sir has very appropriately set the tone of today's lecture because this issue of reverse migration. The very first thing which comes to my mind, and before I start saying and speaking my mind, I must congratulate and thank a base organization of Kolkata, West Bengal, for their good service for the cause of upliftment of humanity. Congratulations to all of you who are there at base in Kolkata, and many thanks to you for inviting me to deliver this lecture, which I'm told that this is the 24th lecture in the series that base is organizing on various topics which are of great contemporary value for people in general and those who are working for the cause of social uplift and development of the downtrodden and the marginalized sections of the population, particularly. Kudos to them and congratulations to them. And thank you very much, Dr. Nargis Ahmad, to you being the link between base and me. And thank you very much for inviting me to deliver this lecture. The very first thing which comes to my mind, the very first thing which comes to my mind, why we call it reverse migration. The reason is that when we think of migration, it is usually from rural areas to urban areas, from villages to cities to towns, from smaller towns, kasbah towns to bigger towns, metro cities. And this is not only in India, this is true everywhere in the world. This is the story of migration. And that is why one of the great economists, perhaps one of the greatest, I should say, Paul Samuelson, who lived almost 100 years and died a few years back, he once remarked, and very simple sentence and a very great statement. He has said that the rich flee the poor, the rich flee the poor, and the poor chase the rich. So that is the beginning of migration in the world. That is the beginning of migration everywhere in the world. Let me start by saying that in the very beginning, people were moving from place to place, nomadic herding. They were moving in tents, they were moving from place to place. They were not living at any particular place. There were no villages. When they did know that if they grow seeds and then plants will come up, then can reap, they can reap paddy, they can reap wheat, they can reap vegetables. So this art of agriculture brought villages into being. When they did learn the art of agriculture, that instead of going in the forest and collecting fruits and vegetables and other things for eating, if they could sow seeds and seeds grow in large amount of plants, and at one place they could reap crops. So that art of agriculture brought villages into being. And when villages started developing, then the wealthy people of the village, the rich flee the poor, the wealthy people of the village, the landlords, the rulers in the rural areas, the feudal landlord system which was there in the very beginning, 200, 300 years before, starting with the British economy and then spreading over other countries of the world. Then they migrated, the rich people, the landlords, they went to such centers where there were mines of iron and coal, and they started industries. These two were the important minerals which formed the basis of industrialization. To be very brief, when they went to centers of mines, they started industries. And when they started industries, they wanted labor. So the people, poorer people, laborers, workers working in the village, they started migrating to towns where industries had been established. So we can say industries gave birth to cities and towns, and agriculture brought villages into being. So that is the story to begin with. So whenever we say migration, usually the attention goes that people are moving from village to towns. People are moving from rural areas to urban areas. People are moving from backward areas to forward areas, developed areas. People are moving. This is not only true at the national level, that people are migrating from poorer states, from poorer regions of the country to richer regions of the country, developed regions of the country, or metros of the country. This is also true at the international level. The people from the developing countries of the world, from backward countries of the world, from poorer countries of the world, from poorer continents, I should say, they are migrating to rich countries. They are migrating to big cities of the world. London, New York, Washington, Paris, Tokyo, Kuala Lumpur, everywhere. Name any big city, you will find workers from across the globe working there, laborers from across the globe working there. Every metro is now a cosmopolitan metro city. The reason is that it is the hub, it is the center which attracted people from many countries, developing countries of the world. So migration, whether we are thinking at the national level or we are thinking at the international level, usually migration meant that people were moving from village to cities. People were moving from rural areas to urban areas. People were moving from poorer areas, poorer regions to richer regions. When we say reverse migration, it means that people started moving from metros to villages. People started moving from cities to rural areas. People started moving from rich centers to poorer areas. The reason was that the conditions of living changed so much overnight because of this COVID pandemic. And when the government announced lockdown, all of a sudden that from the midnight, 25 March, from the midnight, all factories will be closed, all trains will be stopped, all buses will stop, and there was complete lockdown. And all laborers, all workers, the entire population was stuck where they were. And when towards the end of April and 1st May, when the government eased the situation, there were hardships. And there are articles, hosts of essays which described how the hardship the laborers and the workers had to face in metros for months together, for weeks together. And when towards the end of April and May, when the government eased the situation, that there will be labor trains, there will be workers trains, there will be some buses taking them. And then when we look at this, we find that laborers working in cities like Mumbai, in a state like Maharashtra, and the workers and the laborers from Uttar Pradesh, from Bihar, from Jharkhand, from Madhya Pradesh, which are relatively backward states, poorer states as compared to the Bombay region or Thane region or Pune region of Maharashtra, big centers of industries where they had been working in services sector or industry or in other occupation. So they found that because of the lockdown, because those industries were closed, so they were rendered, as Chairman Sir very rightly pointed out in the very beginning, when they found that there was no job for them, they were rendered unemployed overnight. Then they started fleeing, I should say, rushing back. And that rushing back was very difficult story. It was a very painful situation which we had to see, which they had to face, and very painful because there were no trains, there were no buses, there were no adequate arrangement, and they were returning to their villages, to their homes, to their native places, in the hope that there they will get some, at least they will get some opportunity of survival. So this is the setting of the entire scene. That is why we say it is reverse migration. So when we say migration, it is movement of people, movement of laborers from villages to cities, from rural areas to urban areas, from poorer regions to rich regions within a country and also across the globe. Because recently, for reverse migration, the government of India has started a campaign of bringing back the people who were working in other countries of the world, who were working in America, in England, in Japan, in Southeast Asia, in the Middle East, in Dubai region, in United Arab Emirates, in many of these regions where Indians were working, there was a specific campaign for reverse migration, which was known as Vande Bharat campaign, in which special flights were arranged from different airports in these countries to bring back the workers, which was a reverse migration. Because, as I mentioned earlier, migration means that the people in the rural areas in poorer states, they were migrating to richer states, centers in Dubai, centers in Washington, centers in New York, centers in London, centers in Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, Singapore, all those cities which had opportunities for giving employment of various types of employment to unskilled laborers, semi-skilled laborers, skilled laborers, technicians, managers, engineers, doctors, all types of persons, teachers, students. So there were opportunities. Because there were opportunities, people started migrating from poorer countries of the world to richer countries of the world. And when they were caught up, because this pandemic is not only limited to one country, that is why it is called pandemic. Otherwise, should have been called a disease, a national disease at a particular national level. All countries of the world, and almost simultaneously, when the World Health Organization declared it a pandemic in March 2020. So from March 2020, almost every country of the world started facing same situation. And because they started closing their centers, they started closing their industry, they started closing their market, they started closing their establishments, commercial establishments, banks, other organizations. When all these were closed, then there was no option. And the people, laborers working there, they were rendered jobless. So a month back or so, with government of India organized a campaign of bringing back them, which is reverse migration, bringing them back to India through a special campaign known as Vande Bharat, in which flights were, aircrafts were sent from India to those countries, to those big cities, and our laborers working there are engineers, technicians, managers, doctors, students who were studying there, reading in their universities in different courses. Some were doing engineering, some management, some other programs of study, and they were also working there because reading in developed countries, reading in famous universities of the world is very expensive. So students studying there, reading there, they are also doing some part-time job to support their education, to support their study. So they were rendered jobless. So it was very difficult for them to be able to pay fees, to be able to serve themselves, to support their own living in those university towns in developed countries of the world. So that is why we say it reverse migration. I think the point is at home that migration means people are moving from rural areas to urban areas, from poorer areas to rich areas, from villages to cities, and reverse migration means from those rich areas, from those metros, from those centers, from big countries, from developed countries, people started migrating to their home country, their native places. So this is what we say reverse migration. Now, why this migration and why this reverse migration has caught the attention of the people across the globe? The ILO became very much concerned. The World Health Organization became very much concerned. All NGOs working at the local level, for instance, your base organization in the auspices of which this lecture is being organized, or international NGOs working at the global level. They also became concerned about the condition of the laborers, because labor, when we think of migration or reverse migration, we think of labor, we think of worker, mazdoor. And whenever we think of Sharmik mazdoor or labor working there, we think and we realize that they are the real wealth of a nation. The famous book, Adam Smith, who is known as the father of economics, Adam Smith is father of economics, and he published his famous book, Wealth of Nations, in 1776, 1776. 1776 is important for two reasons. One, that this is the year Adam Smith published Wealth of Nations, and because he is the father of economics, 1776 is also recognized as the birth year of economics, because he is the father of economics, and his major book was published in 1776. So 1776 is regarded as the birth year of economics. But then a great economist has hastened to add, he has immediately added, but like a baby, economics was taking shape even before it was born. So 1776 is the beginning. Adam Smith. It is a big book, very big volume. There are 5 parts: book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5, and 3 volumes. Libraries. When we were students in Lucknow University, when we were research scholars in England, and I also visited his place, Edinburgh, in Scotland, and he belonged to Scotland, Edinburgh there. And there is Adam Smith building in which a economics department is housed in Scotland, in Edinburgh. Uh, uh, the first sentence, that shows the significance of labor. And because of the significance of labor, we are very much concerned about their migration, about their reverse migration, about their movement, about their conditions of working, about their wages, about their welfare, about their living patterns, about their occupational structure, because they are important. The first sentence from Wealth of Nations. See, first sentence from Wealth of Nations. Annual labor of a nation is the fund which originally supplies it with all necessaries and conveniences of life which the nation annually consumes. I repeat, annual labor of a nation is the fund which originally supplies it with all necessaries and conveniences of life which the nation annually consumes. As if labor is not a stock capital. Labor is a flow concept. Today's labor is today's labor. And if today's labor is not used, then today's labor will be wasted. And then tomorrow, it will be tomorrow's labor which will be used tomorrow. If we have 100 rupee note in our pocket, $100 in our pocket, pound in our pocket, if we do not spend it today, it can be saved to be spent tomorrow. It can be saved to be used tomorrow. But today's labor, if it is not used today, will be wasted. And tomorrow, when you use the labor tomorrow, it is not today's labor. It cannot be stored for tomorrow. It is tomorrow's labor. And that is why it is a flow capital. Human capital is not a stock capital. It is a flow capital. Physical capital, financial capital is a stock concept. If you do not use it today, you can use it tomorrow. But labor, if you do not use it today, it will be wasted. If you use it tomorrow, it is not today's labor, it is tomorrow's labor, which will be working there. And that is why the condition of the laborer is very vulnerable. Repeat the sentence. Annual labor of a nation, Varshiksharam, of the whole year. Annual labor of a nation is the fund, Nidhi, which originally supplies it with all necessaries and conveniences of life, which the nation annually consumes. All the necessaries and conveniences of life, production of food grains, production of industrial commodities, production of comfortables, production of luxuries. Who are doing this? Who are doing this? The moment we realize who are doing this, we are reminded of the contribution of labor. We are reminded the contribution of people who are working as laborer. And when we say laborer, it is distinguished only from capital. We teachers, we professors, we lawyers, we engineers, we doctors, we are also laborers. We are not capitalists. We are not earning because of capital that we have. We are using our labor. Somebody is using mental labor. Somebody is using physical labor. Somebody is using unskilled labor. Somebody is using semi-skilled labor. Somebody is using highly skilled labor, technician, engineer, manager. So whenever we think of labor, we think of the contribution of the labor in production of necessaries and conveniences of life.
I have one suggestions book, like if you will read, that will be nice, by Professor Jan Bremen. Professor Jan Bremen, the book is called Footloose Labor. So it basically gives the details about the migrations pattern, and especially focusing on the South Gujarat as a case study. This is a nice book by Professor Jan Bremen, and also very good digital platform called PARI, People's Archives of Rural India, by P. Sainath runs that initiative. It is very fascinating sort of a website which gives details about the everyday lives of migrant workers of India. I hope speaker will join, and this is also reality of our digital India, that how digitally advanced we are. Even though we all, I mean, like those who are participating today is almost we are part of higher educations. In spite of this, we know how the crude and dark reality of our digital platform. By the way, he'll be joining soon. This is just for as you know, BASE is a platform of academic debate and discussions, which basically committed to promote scientific knowledge. I mean, like both social science as well as other disciplines. As part of today's lecture, I would like to request you, we have another couple of very extremely important lectures by Professor Christoph Jaffello on 8th of this month, I mean, like on 8th of August. And then we have also Professor Sumit Maskar, and then Professor Yasir Arafat from Delhi University and OP Jindal. I mean, please do join those programs as well. In between, I mean, those who are interested in working on migrant laborers, and especially on the labor issues, I think we can form a small working group. I mean, where we can discuss various reports. And just for your information, I'm just making it convenient so that in between, once our speaker join, I will leave this mic.
Yes,
My
speaker
point is
already
that the
joined.
way we discuss migrant labor
Mati,
is not an issue of which started in March 25th of this year. This is a long term program. I mean, like,
Professor
if you
Abdul
look at the
Matin.
census report, if you look at the NSSO data, if you look at major reports by Government of India, we find a clear massive mass exodus from rural India to urban India. And in this process started in, I mean, like, in 90s, but it culminated.
Professor Muzammil, please unmute your microphone and please carry on.
Thank you very much. And I was at the point that labor is the means and end of development. And when we say labor is the means and end of development, we realize the contribution of the laborer, and then we are immediately driven to the welfare issues of the labor, whether they are working in big metros or they are working in rural areas or villages. And from that point of view, we are driven to think of the role of the trade unions, because why it is that the condition of the laborers is very pitiable, and they are working in situations in which succor and help is not coming to them, and the bargaining power is weakening, because the last century was the century which did witness the rise of trade unionism and the downfall of the trade unionism. And this is the time when virtually the laborers are without any effective trade union, and many of the measures which are being taken by the government, they are measures, they are against the interest of the laborers. For instance, we were thinking in terms of permanent jobs, we were thinking in terms of regular jobs, and now is the time. We have time rate of wages, we have contractual labor, we have temporary jobs, and all this is happening because that era of the trade unions and the organizations who were working for the welfare of the laborers is gone. And it was under the influence of those trade unions in the last century, beginning from 1920s until the downfall of the USSR, and later the decade of 1990s, as was mentioned by one of the speakers just before me. And because when we think of the wages regulation in India, we find that Minimum Wages Act was incorporated, the first Minimum Wages Act in 1948, but equal pay for equal work, giving equality to laborers working in metros, working in rural areas, anywhere. Equal pay for equal work was enacted as late as 1976, when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India. Then equal pay for equal work legislation was legislated in 1976. So Minimum Wages Act was enacted in 1948, but equal pay for equal work, when many of the organizations started intervening, women empowerment movement started there, and Esther Bosrup published the role of women in economic development. So that was the time when the contribution of the female labor, the contribution of the women worker became very important. And when we look to the migration and reverse migration of the laborers from the big towns to cities, then the condition of the women workers was more pitiable, was more painful than the condition of the male workers. And then going to the situation of the social security standards, social security measures for the laborers working in different industries, different dangerous and precarious industries where the risk is too much open for the workers working there. The arrangement of the social security, the arrangement of old age benefits for them is lacking. And when they move from big cities, big centers to rural areas, the problem is how to provide them alternative jobs in villages, because the jobs where they had been working, those jobs are not there. So there is not only unemployment in rural areas, there is also what we say concealed unemployment in rural areas. So on the face of it, it appears that they are working, they are engaged working, and they are getting wages, but actually they are not contributing, and their marginal productivity is very low, almost zero, and that is why we say that there is concealed unemployment in rural areas and in the agriculture sector. And that is why in the very beginning we were thinking in terms of giving employment to people, those people who are migrating from one place to another, giving employment to the people. And they got employment, but the wages were so low that they could not they could not subsist at a reasonably well standard of living with those low wages, with the low rates of wages, small wages. So the ILO came and it started thinking, it started advocating, campaigning in terms of gainful employment. So the first stage was providing employment, providing jobs. Then the second stage came providing gainful employment. When they are migrating from one place to another place, it's not only that they should be given some job to work at, some job to subsist, but the job or the employment opportunity should be in such a way to should be to such an extent that it helps them to live a reasonably good standard of living. And then a step ahead, human rights and human development did come in, and rights of the laborers did come in. Then the ILO started talking in terms of decent employment, that is, employment to the laborers working in industries, in agriculture, in construction, in services sector, anywhere. They should be given opportunity of having decent employment, that is, should not be denied of the basic human rights when they are working in any of these occupations, in any of these opportunities, where in any of these occupations where they are engaged. Uh, Therefore, we have these three types of things: employment, gainful employment, and decent employment. And another important thing of which is very valuable thing, and will be of great importance when we analyze the impact of this reverse migration on social development, on economic development, which is division of labor, because division of labor has three great advantages for the society. It increases productivity, it saves time, and it causes invention. So if the laborers and the people are working continuously at a place, these three advantages will occur to the society. These three advantages, I repeat, it increases productivity, it saves time, and it causes invention. And when they are moving from place to place, migrating from place to place, then these advantages will be gone, and there will be not only a loss to them, there will be a loss to the society, there will be loss to the economy. And that is why the last point which comes to my mind is the productivity of the laborer, the participation of the laborer in management, and the way they are working for the economy, for the society, for the industry, which is not only contributing for the welfare of that particular organization in the long run, that is contributing for the welfare of the entire economy, entire society, because labor is the active factor of production. And other things, capital, land, resources, they are the passive factor of development. There are many countries, many regions within a country where resources are in abundance, but the labor has not been active, labor has not been efficient, labor has not been employed on those resources, on those capital base. So production has been lacking. There has been no production at all. And where labor has been active, where labor has been efficient, and it has been working on resources, on capital, there we could get production, we could get higher levels of development. So that is the active factor of production, and the rest of the resources, they are the passive factor, and that is why we say that they are the means of development, and also the end of development, for whom the laborers are working, for whom we are working as teachers, as engineers. We are working for ourselves as farmers. We are working for ourselves, and other factors of product, they're not working for them, and that is why this human element, and that recent book by Sonia Shah, the journalist from USA, she says that there is a trend of migration of not only of humans, migration of animals, also migration of plants and vegetation, also from warmer areas to cooler areas for survival and for subsistence in the long run. So those are the things which are of interest in larger context. But as of now, we are concerned with the causes, reasons why this reverse migration is started, the impact of this reverse migration, and how, what measures can we adopt in different states, in different districts, in different village areas to provide succor to those people who have reversed back to their native places, and how we can arrange employment for them, social help for them. And I have no hesitation in saying that this is the time when non-government organizations have been very helpful, and they did play a very important role, because now is the time when there are four forces which are working on the development of any society or any country. International organizations, number one, like the World Bank, like the IMF, like the WTO, like the ILO, like the United Nations, World Health Organization, etc. Then multinational corporations, the corporations which are working in different countries of the world, Akai, Mitsui, Mitsubishi, IBM, and Hyundai, all this. And then international non-government organizations, NGOs, voluntary organizations, which are working in different countries of the world, Oxfam, for instance, and foreign governments, government of USA, government of UK, government of Japan, government of China, different countries. So they are impacting upon the policies, labor policies, migration policies within a country. There was a time, the time is limited for me. There was a time 100 years before, 120 years before the First World War. At that time, before the First World War, about 100 years before or 110 years before, no passport was needed for international travel, and and visa was immediately granted when the person arrived on the shore, on the port, through ships. Visa was immediately granted, and even citizenship was also immediately granted. If they wanted to have a citizenship was also granted. So that was the real global system about 100 years before or 110 years before the First World War, 1914, that no passport was needed for international travel. Visa was immediately granted. Even citizenship, if you are willing to take the citizenship, even citizenship was immediate. And that was it. The international migration that took place in those times, those were the migration which now provide that we have people from Indian origin in different parts of the world, in different countries of the world. भारत के मूल के लोग वहाँ पर आबाद हैं, and they are contributing in different ways to the development of this society and the economy of those countries. So with this, I think there was some disruption, but I have taken my time. So thank you very much, the coordinator, sir, the chairman, sir, and Dr. Nargis Ahmed for giving me this opportunity. And now is the time for any clarification or queries that the audience and the participants to this webinar might be having with them. Thank you very much.
Anyone has any questions, please send it to us.
Okay, there are two questions in the chat box. So first one is, sir, can the problems of reverse migration? Can you see it, sir?
I can hear you.
In the chat box, you can see it.
No, I cannot see it. You please tell me.
Yes. So can the problems of reverse migrations be done away without the major decisive changes in the exploitative structures, and not only at the policy levels? If yes, then please elaborate on it.
Because this reverse migration has resulted because of the closure of the concerns and establishments, industries, and work opportunities in the centers where the laborers were working. So if there is a lockout, if there is a close down, and there is a depression in the economy or deflationary condition or a slowdown in the economy, then all these industrial houses, the construction houses, the financial sector, they shrink. And if these financial activities shrink, then without any change in the policies of the government, labor policies or anything, there will be lesser opportunities, and because now we do not have permanent jobs, we have temporary jobs, we have daily wages, we have contractual labor. So that is why I said that from the decade of 1990s, with the downfall of the USSR and with the weakening of the trade unions in India and everywhere, virtually everywhere in the world, we started talking in terms of flexible labor laws, making labor laws flexible. Now, what is this making labor laws flexible? That the employers should be given the right to hire and fire the laborers, and that is why the condition of the workers working in industries, in transport, communication, construction, services sector, industrial sector has become very vulnerable. So I think this is because of this situation, that whenever there is a recessionary condition and there is slowdown and the production goes down, then the laborer, some of the laborer, part of the laborer will be rendered jobless, and they will have to go back to the places they came from. Thank you.
Yes, there is another question by
Yeah.
Pusmita Dev. Sir, please comment and explain on the recent scrapping of important labor laws during lockdown.
This is very important because the conditions are unprecedented, and these unprecedented conditions created situations where the different state governments and the central government, they started working in a haste, and there was no good coordination between the central government and the state government, between two state governments, I should say. For instance, take the case of Maharashtra, because most of the laborers who were working in Maharashtra, in Mumbai and other big cities in Maharashtra, when the government of Maharashtra made an arrangement, when the central government made an arrangement that there will be trains moving from Mumbai and other industrial towns in Maharashtra and taking the laborers to their destination in Jharkhand, in Bihar, in Odisha, in Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, then Maharashtra was willing. Government of India provided facility of trade, but many of the governments like Uttar Pradesh and many of the state government were not willing to take back those laborers straight away, and that created problems. And because of that, there were issues with the governments, and that had impact on the laborers who were in movement from one place to another place. Thank you.
Yes, and there is another question. This is not very much
Mm,
related to this topic, but I'm reading it.
mm.
What term can be used to situations where urban rich buy land, homes, estates in rural areas and settle or use as holiday homes?
Mhm. Uh, this is a new situation which is coming up because they are using it as a rural resort type of thing. Not only in rural areas, they are using it in tourist places also. In all tourist places like Darjeeling in North West Bengal, like Nainital in Uttar Pradesh, like Shimla in Himachal Pradesh, like Ooty, like Mount Abu, in all tourist places, the rich people, they are having now their own bungalows, their own resorts in those areas, and using them for their vacation purposes. And if we look at the positive side of this, we can say that they are giving opportunities for people to work there because they have created some infrastructure there. And from social point of view, we can say that they're encroaching upon the limited resources, because land is limited in all tourist places. Resources are limited in all tourist places. So if one person occupies large area of land for resort purposes, that means that much of area of land is not available for other purposes. So looking from the point of view of the supply of the scarce natural resources and economic resources, we will say that this is not desirable for the society. And looking from the point of view of providing opportunities of work and lifestyle, this is now the capital
I think there is some problem, sir. Sir,
If
Yes, there's a problem in your audio. So, would you off your video, sir, so that we can hear it clearly? Okay.
can you hear me better now?
Yes, yes, now better.
Okay, thank you. And next question, any question more?
Yes, next question. Has the central government adopted any policy on migration in this pandemic situation?
The central government, because there has been no pre-thinking. The first thing which is very important and which created the confusion, that there was no pre-thinking for employing these people, for taking these people back to their respective places. There was no pre-thinking of declaring the pandemic from the midnight of a particular date. And because of that, and then similarly opening up of the transport facilities, there was rush of people. So because there was no sensible pre-thinking on the part of the government, there were problems both when the lockdown was announced in March and when the big centers were opened and limited transport facility was made available, because we read the newspapers and we also find reports elsewhere that people even took to roads on foot. They started walking, and they walked hundreds of miles to reach their native places, to reach their destination. So there was absolute lack of coordination, absolute lack of understanding with the government to to address the problem and the uh, the 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 magnitude of the problem, the intensity and the magnitude, both intensity and the magnitude of the problem. Thank you.
Okay, there is another question. A large
Yeah.
section of people
Mm,
from rural Bengal are
mm,
migrant worker in different states.
mm,
Among those, a large section are from Muslim community.
mhm.
Now, are they returned? They now they have returned back and become jobless. How to address this issue?
This is very important, because this is not only for a particular community. This is also applicable in general, and particularly a Muslim community, because they are relatively a poor community. So one thing is that in what type of occupation the other people of the village, the other people of the family are. Suppose they are working in land, so we can diversify the land. We can start some related agro industries in rural areas where they can be absorbed, because diversification of agriculture is very important. The rural part of West Bengal is still agricultural. West Bengal agricultural land are there, and fertile lands are there. So I think, for instance, when we think of rice cultivation, other states are having one crop a year of rice. In West Bengal, in Assam, in those areas, we find that the three crop, Osaman and Boro, three crops of paddy. Similarly, we can think of growing quick maturing crops, processing of the crops, starting agro-based industries, starting some cottage industries, or modernizing the existing cottage industries where the laborers who are joining back their families can be absorbed and can be given some employment. We can also think in terms of the new technology being taken to the villages where they could be employed, because now there is what we say virtual employment opportunity. If you have a laptop, then arrangements should be made to provide a laptop if the person is tech savvy and knows operation of a computer and laptop. Then many of the opportunities are there which can be performed from home itself. So there is a need to educate, and organizations, NGOs can be of great help to people to tell them and to explain to them what are the opportunities through the virtual work opportunity which is available to them. So these are the ways, I think, more opportunities can be provided to the people and the minorities who are migrating back to their native places. Thank you.
Yes. Another question: can we ensure the basic necessities for the laborers uh, with the help of constitutional rights in critical situations?
Constitutional right to life, right to work, right to labor, many provisions are there, but then implementation is lacking. That is the most painful side of that. For instance, in today's situation, if any person is infected by this corona pandemic and is taken to hospital, uh, we are reading stories of complaints that they are not being well taken care there. So all the medical laws and medical manuals, they say that the person who is admitted to a hospital should be taken care of for food, shelter, other amenities of life, and given dignity. But then in practice, we find that they are living in very neglected conditions, and particularly in this pandemic situation. Same is the case with the social setting, the labor sector. The constitutional provision is there, labor laws are there, but the implementation of that is lacking, and that is why there are labor tribunals where the complaints are taken, labor tribunals, and labor tribunals again take long time to decide the cases why the exploitation or ill treatment of these laborers was done. Implementation has been lacking.
Yes. Another question: if a labor has nothing,
Mm.
not even a shade, like the urban footpath dwellers, what does the constitution has to say about their rights?
Because human rights are important. Constitutional rights give rights to live and right to life, and equal pay for equal work and those things, labor laws. Constitution provisions of the constitution need to be read also along with the provisions of the labor laws. So, as I mentioned earlier, the provisions seem to be adequate. The provisions seem to be complementing each other, but then when it comes to enforcing those provisions, enforcing those articles of the Constitution in real life, there I think the real problem lies, that the approach is not human. And that is why the framers of the Constitution, Dr. Ambedkar, is reported to have said in the parliament itself, in the Constituent Assembly, that the success of the Constitution will not depend upon what is written in the Constitution. The success of the Constitution will depend on who are the people who are implementing the articles of the Constitution in the society. If they are honest and earnest in helping the poor through the constitutional provisions are there. If they are not honest in their approach to helping the people, the Constitution will not be of much avail.
Yes, another question.
Mm.
Uh, does migration lead to brain drain or brain gain in the originating countries or regions?
Both the cases are there. Usually, we talk of brain drain because from poorer areas, from poorer regions, better people, technicians go to the richer regions, and there is also unskilled laborers also move. So when unskilled laborers move there, they learn some skill there outside. For instance, in many of the Middle East countries, when the laborers migrate from developing countries, then there they gain some skills, and then they are earning better wages there. So we can say that they are the gainers. But sometimes when we send engineers, doctors, managers who show their excellence there, uh, we say that it is brain drain, that instead of working at home, they went to America, they went to England, they went to France and Japan, and in the Middle East. So they are showing their excellence in those countries instead of showing their excellence back home in India. So from that point of view, we say that it is uh, brain drain. But if they go and acquire something good there in foreign country and come back and start working in their motherland and they start serving in their motherland with better capacity, with better abilities, with the better skill, then we can say that it is a brain gain through this process of migration, and they came back with better able capacities and abilities. Thank you.
Okay, there is another question of Sam. Sam, would you please unmute and please say your question?
Yeah, hi.
Yes.
Am
Hi.
I audible?
Yes.
Sir, basically what I wanted to ask is that, that the division of labor
Mm.
to different stratas according to the nature of employment. Like, let's say, in case of teachers, we have contractual teachers, we have full-time teachers, we have part-time teachers, we have guest teachers, right?
Mm.
So, there is a breaking of the same community into different parts, right?
Mm.
So my question was that, in case of the teaching community, or let's say, an institution like the railways, what do we do, to ensure our collective voice, and to strengthen it, and to create a dialogue again, across these stakeholders, because usually this is what happens, that each one of these employees would be working in a small circle, or
Yeah.
union would be functioning with a select people with a select set of interests. So what do we do about that, sir?
I think at the national level, at the social level, an awareness needs to be created that there is a need for the organization of the workers, who can think in terms of the welfare of the workers. Because now is the time, we are moving towards a liberal economy. We are moving towards an economy which is a privatized economy, which is a capitalist economy. Earlier, we were on socialist pattern of society. So as long as the economy was moving on a socialistic pattern of society, labor organizations were very strong. And we remember when I was a student, even I was a young lecturer in Lucknow University in 1974. George Fernandez, he had a long strike of the railways. And after that, there was no strike. There were issues, but there was no strike. So strike is not the aim, but the aim is how to mobilize the public opinion that something should be done for the welfare of the laborers. Because now is the time we are moving from labor consideration to capital consideration. That is very painful situation for, and very undesirable situation from the viewpoint of social justice and from the viewpoint of welfare. I think an intellectual and a social campaign needs to be taken, whereby we can create an opinion that there is a need to protect the interest of the workers, whether they are guest teachers or contractual teachers, or not only teachers, in anybody working in the form of a temporary or part-time worker. Because now there is no regular job, there is no permanent job, there is piece rate of wages, time rate, do this much of work, take this much of money, go away. Now, this approach of labor, using labor, is very unethical. Do this much of work and take this much of money and go away. So today you can give very high wages for small work, but then tomorrow there will be no work at all. So there is some, and that is why we say that regular wages sometimes are low wages, and daily wages are sometimes high wages, because there is no continuity of that. Thank you.
Thank you
Hello.
so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
So, sir, I have a question. So,
Yes.
question is that you look that in these pandemic situations, we
Yeah.
have seen this is invisible labor force. In generally, we can't see that labor force. So, the labor who are working on the roads and miles to miles.
Yeah.
So, my question is that do you think that the effect of this epidemic affect equally? The people are saying it equally. You look at unemployment, and even the people are they lost their jobs. Do you think that this epidemic and even the work of laborers, do you think it affect equally to society, every community?
Uh, any pandemic, any catastrophic event, it affects unequally the different groups of the society. It affects every such situation, which is unusual situation. It affects the poorer people, the laborers, very adversely, because once they lose the job, they don't have to fall back upon their income. They don't have any income. The income goes to zero. Those people who are permanent employees and they are working from home, they are getting wages, almost full wages they are getting. And those who were working on daily basis, they are rendered jobless. These hawkers, the rickshaw wala, thela wala, all these people who were working on daily wages on daily basis, and they are the worst affected people. So whenever there is a pandemic situation, when there is a catastrophe, and whenever the jobs are taken away, then the worst sufferers are these people. And the salaried people are not the sufferers because they have good time at home, and they don't have to worry about their income because their income is coming to their bank account after month, week after week. So they don't have to worry. So I think it creates further inequality in the society. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I was talking that in this situation there was a
Yeah.
tendency to boycott Muslims,
Mm,
Muslim worker,
mm,
Telawala, or whatever
mm,
you can say.
mm, mm,
So there was tendency to boycott Muslims economically.
mhm,
So uh, and even we have seen in multiple times there was a call for genocide in
mhm,
several newspaper also. So
mhm.
my question was in that context.
It is very unfortunate that at a point of time, some people in a Jamaat in Delhi were held responsible for spreading the coronavirus, and those who went from the Markaz in Delhi to other places, they started spreading there. And this was very unfortunate to relate it to certain group, because no effort was made at that time to find out who were the people who are coming in the Jamaat and who are joining it, and how long they will stay. No effort was made of that type there. And when it was found out that they are a Muslim community, then people started working against it. So that was very unfortunate situation. Should not have occurred in a democratic situation in which all communities have equal social and political rights. Should not have happened. Luckily, that situation did not last long, and subsided because the pandemic continued for long. Had it terminated at that state, they would have been more severely persecuted because it continued. So that is gone in previous months. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I would ask from audience, is there any question? So
I,
if you have any
I
question,
think
please ask.
Mm.
I think the questions has exhausted already,
Thank you
or
very much.
or is there anyone who is still to put some questions?
This is Chairman Sir is speaking.
Hello, yes, hello, hello.
Hello.
I think all questions raised here has been exhausted and answered.
Okay.
And
Thank you
so
very much.
then we may end this session. This was enormously in this touch, this session. We came to know various facets of this reverse migration, and we will thank Professor Muzammil as he has given his precious time for this lecture. I will request my colleague to uh, deliver the formal thanks of vote of thanks for this lecture. Before that, I will only just give some another type of migration, some information about the another type of migration. While I was hearing the lecture, I was going for the census report. I found that in 2001 census, the persons who migrated for work or employment is 1 crore 44 lakh, and the number of persons who migrated for marriage is 4 crore 31 lakh, almost 4 400% more person migrated for marriage. So migration, it is a phenomena. It will last long. It will be ever continuing phenomena. But this reverse migration, what has been turned to be a catastrophe to our country, we have to find out some solution how to adjust with it.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
Bhuta,
please
thank
carry
you
on.
and did it. Hello.
Yes, carry on, please.
No, no, I have completed, and now vote of thanks will be given by our colleagues. তোমাদের মধ্যে কে দেবে vote of thanks?
Okay,
যার
so
দেওয়ার কথা সে দিয়ে দাও।
Professor Kobita Madam will
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
deliver the vote of
হ্যাঁ
thanks.
হ্যাঁ 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 তাকে বলো কি নাম
So
কে বল
Kobita di,
কে দেবে?
Kobita di.
হ্যাঁ 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 I will request Dr. Kobita, Dr. Sheikh Kobita to deliver vote of thanks for this session.
Thank you, Kajshab. On behalf of Bengali Academia for Social Empowerment, BASE, we are immensely thankful to our Honorable Speaker, Professor Muzammil sir, for his informative and valuable lecture. We are immensely thankful to our Kaji Muhammad Sharif for chairing today's session. We are thankful to BASE coordinators for organizing BASE lecture series. Special thanks to BASE technical support team, obviously. I would like to extend my thanks to our participants for joining today's session. And I request you, please join our next lecture, which is going to be held on 6th August. The topic is Studying Abroad, Possibilities and Challenges by Dr. Mehboob Sahana. He is a research associate of University of Manchester. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor
Thank you.
Sheikh Kobita. So I would request to all the participants to leave this session.
Muzammil sir, once again,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for
Thank
There is,
joining us.
there is another
Yeah.
announcement. I think that tomorrow we have another session. Tomorrow we have two sessions actually. Another session I am telling the topic is studying nursing scope and challenges by Professor Nargis Ahmed Madam. So this
Oh.
is a very important, I think, student friend. It will be very student friendly lecture. So I would request all the participants to join to guide their children, their friends, their actually juniors. And thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Muzammil.
Thank
For
you.
today.
Thank you very much. Okay. Bye. Thank you.